And welcome everyone to another edition of Let's Talk Tresco. My name is Gino Aragon, your host. And if you are here for the first time and wondering what is Tresco, well, for over 50 years, Tresco has been providing professional and individualized services, supports, and opportunities to people of any age with differing abilities, their families, and their communities that they serve. In fact, over 12 counties throughout New Mexico currently, with three main divisions: their TOTS Early Intervention, and their Day One Home Visiting, and Tresco Works. And of course, if you need more information or you want to contact Tresco, you can visit them at their website, trescoinc.org, or phone 575-528-2200. And today, our guest is Daniel Soliz. And Daniel, how are you doing today?
Pretty good.
I know they kind of wrangled you in here for the day, but we want to learn more about Tresco, of course, and about what you do with Tresco. So that's the first question. What do you do with Tresco, Daniel?
Right now, I'm working with Tresco Talks, and I am a speech therapist. I work with kids birth to 3, and we provide services, basically therapies, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy to kids that have delays.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good right there. But what exactly does a speech therapist do or language therapist do with the kids here?
So what I do basically is I try to figure out where they're delayed with speech, whether they're having expressive delays, which means that they don't have a lot of words, whether they're having receptive delays, they're not understanding very much, and then just trying to figure out how to get them to the point where they're not delayed anymore. Usually we work with parents and families to be able to give them the strategies and skills that we know. So then that way they can use those skills while they're with their kids the rest of the time.
Okay, that's awesome. And how early can you actually detect some of these delays?
With speech, usually I would say maybe about like 5 or 6 months. Maybe if a baby's really quiet or something like that. With other things, we can detect delays from birth, but usually with speech, it's about like 4 or 5 months, depending on the baby.
You know, and that's something that I just realized right now, because when you're talking speech, we're not necessarily just talking words. We're talking expressions and how they express themselves, right?
Right. We talk about sounds also. If a baby is kind of quiet and they're not babbling too much, we also even look at the different types of sounds that babies are making, because then we can kind of predict in the future what kind of sounds they're going to be making, what kind of words they're going to be making. I think there was even a study that was done that shows that the different type of sounds that a baby is making actually correlates to how well they'll read in the future. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome, because I know in the past, the idea of these benchmarks or what kids should be doing is always something that I think maybe it's in the back of a parent's mind,
right?
But it's not necessarily something that they're concentrating on because, oh, well, they're just a little bit behind or just a little bit not getting things yet.
Right.
But, you know, with what you do and I guess the screening that you would go through, you'd be able to find out where some of these delays are, or if there are, and then be able to help them from that point.
Right. So what we do is we do, when we first start services, we do a very comprehensive evaluation, and it goes through all parts of development. It goes through gross motor, the way they move, fine motor, the way they use their fine motor movements, like their fingers, their hands, stuff like that. We also do speech, how well they're understanding, how well they're saying things. We do self-help, the way they try to help themselves. Social emotional, the way they're interacting with their caretakers, how they're connecting with them, and then also coping skills, how they cope with things. So we go through this very, very broad kind of evaluation and assessment to really try to figure out what's going on with our kiddos.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a whole lot that you're kind of going through, which brings me to this next part of this. It's like when you are getting ready for something, to go out for a visit, or even do you go out with the evaluations as well?
Yeah, I do evaluations also.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So tell me, what is a day like for you when you're getting ready to go out to visit one of these families?
I'm kind of the opposite where I.
We'll start off with how many times do you hit the snooze button?
Yeah, like way too many.
Okay.
Usually for me, I go in very kind of open. Like I try not to. Sometimes I'll look at the information, like if it's a very complex kind of case, I'll look at it to kind of prepare myself. But I like to go in with an open mind and try to figure out like what's going on, kind of just get a feel when I'm there. I really like to talk with parents and listen to parents, really kind of get a feel for what kind of difficulties they're having in the homes and in the routines and stuff like that, and really try to figure out on a very specific case, like what I can do and how I can help right from the beginning. Once we're having the evaluation, I'm already thinking of strategies in my head. Like, I think this would really work for this one kid. And it's case by case. Like, not all two kids are the same. It's really hard to kind of go in with a plan, because it always turns out that the kids will completely destroy your plan and do something else.
That sounds like every day for me. You go in with a plan, and then 15 minutes later, it's not the plan that you're going to need. Yeah,
exactly.
And that's something that is very interesting, because, as you say, you start off with a very broad kind of picture of what things are going to be like. And then as you go through this evaluation,
right,
you can then kind of pinpoint the areas of need, or pinpoint the things that might be able to work on, or kind of get that through there. It's almost like, as a big tech guy, I can say it's almost like troubleshooting some of the issues. You have to go through there, see what is working, see where they stand, see what's going on. And it's kind of, I think if you can put it that way, even to some parents, you're just kind of troubleshooting to see what it is that we can do. And sometimes it will take a lot, and sometimes maybe not so much.
Yeah, definitely. Like, every kid is different, and you just got to try to be creative, try to be flexible, and try to figure out what's going to work the best for the families and for that specific kid. And it really is like, I've gone through so many different scenarios where I have to think really creatively and try to figure out, like, how am I going to try to help this family as much as possible? And it works. It's a really good system. We actually switched from what we call the medical model to the coaching model. And that was a little weird, because we used to do the medical model where this is what we learned in schools. We go in and we try to help and fix what's going on. Whereas in the coaching model, we give the strategies to the families, and they're the ones that do a lot of the work while we're not there. So it's basically like, we're there for maybe 2 hours out of the month, where the family's there 24/7, and they're the ones that make the big impact.
I know. Absolutely. I mean, when you think about that, the kids are with their families all the time. They're with mom, with dad, their siblings that are going to be there, and how much they have an effect on how a child is going to speak, or their understanding of things makes so much different. So the idea of working with the parents to make sure that they can, I assume, some like exercises or different types of things that they can do until your next visit, and then you've seen how things progress.
I like to think about it as like laying down the foundation of things that should be done, and things that we really don't think about. Like, I feel like a lot of parents don't really think about the foundations of how kids learn language and stuff like that. So once I teach them those foundations, it starts really coming along. And then if there's something specific that we need to work on, then we'll work on that.
Oh, that would be your kind of action plan that would go through that.
Right.
Because one thing I learned about Tresco last week is that, of course, they're taking kids from birth, up to pre-K on those things. So there's a lot of time right in there that you can have to go ahead and help out these children. So it's not just you're going to come to visit for a while, tell them what to do, and then that's it. No, you're going to kind of keep an eye on everything that's going on as you go through this process.
Yeah, we actually, it's kind of funny that you say that, because we build these connections and these relationships with these families that when they exit the program, it's kind of hard, because they've gotten used to seeing us, and we end up usually, I like to have a big old party at Peter Piper for all these kids that exit out, but
oh, that's cool.
It's cool because you develop these really strong connections with these families, and sometimes it's hard letting them go, but when you really develop that strong connection, it's so much better, because then they are able to use those strategies and skills because they trust you. And then you really see the difference in the kids. You really see them start taking off, and like, hey, you've been using that strategy really well.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then, of course, the satisfaction of knowing how much they've grown or how much they're doing right now, when they do exit that program, that's got to feel really good as far as helping people out.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things is asking a mom, like, dude, do you remember what it was like when we started? And then, like, look at the kid now. Like, they're talking a ton. They're saying this or expressing themselves.
And then I'm sure maybe not for the first time, you probably heard from some parents, oh yeah, I can't get them to be quiet. I can't get them to stop. They're constantly going. And then they grow up to have radio careers. So that's how it goes sometimes. And how many families are you working with at one time?
So at one time, right now, I think I have a caseload of about 45. So I have 45 families within Anthony, Las Cruces, Hatch, and TRC.
Wow, they are not giving you much of a break on there, right?
Yeah, kind of. It's not too bad right now, but yeah, it's fun. It's fun having all these different people and families that I get to see.
And is it just monthly visits, or there's sometimes where you schedule more visits, or does that go on a case-by-case basis?
So that's the thing that makes it a little bit easier. It depends on the scenario. So some kids I see weekly, some I see 2 times a month, and then monthly. So 45 sounds like a lot, but it's not too much when you have a pretty good amount of monthly and a pretty good amount of like 2 times a month. It's the weeklies that really get you. It's like, whoa, that one's hard. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
And you mentioned you're going out to different areas. So Anthony, did you say Hatch?
Yes, we do Hatch also.
Okay. Yeah. So all these areas that you're going out right there. So it's not just in the Las Cruces area. You guys get out a whole lot.
Yeah, I think we do the whole Doña Ana County.
Wow, that's a whole lot of space to cover on there.
It is.
And how about we talk about the satisfaction of seeing the kids when they get things and they understand things, or when they're exiting the program.
Right.
Do you have anyone that kind of stands out in your mind that was pretty awesome or amazing for you to experience?
I feel like all of them.
I want to see. Awesome. I was waiting for him. I was waiting for you to say all of them.
But, I would say there's one very specifically that didn't have language, and I used something that he was doing already, but we really didn't think of it as language. It was just like an everyday thing, like a high five or like something like that. And I suggested to the mom to use a high five to be able to him just like communicate something, that he wants something. What I call it is I call it the exchange, that everything is always an exchange. I feel like language is an exchange. I give a message and then someone gives me a message back. And I feel like that's really important with kids. If they don't understand that process of the exchange, then it's hard for them to get kind of language. So what I really wanted to work on was trying to get this kid to exchange. And he started high-fiving to tell that he wanted something. And to mom, like he had never initiated communication. He had never shown that he wanted something. So to her, it was pretty important. And now we're trying to work on like trying to get him to kind of broaden it a little bit. All right, I know that you want something now. You got to tell me what you want. And we're working on that. But that one was pretty cool because the mom was pretty excited that he was able to actually exchange something and actually initiate that, hey, I want to communicate with you.
And that's very important, because that just brought into my mind once again that when you talk about language,
right,
we're not necessarily talking about verbal language as well. We're talking about the nonverbal types of language,
right?
Because there's, like you said, a high five, or just a nod, or waving or pointing at something. I know that I used to help out a friend of mine when she had an in-home daycare center,
right?
And for a lot of times, for some of the younger kids that were still learning, some of the basics that we would go through are basic ASL sign language right there. So if we wanted a water, or if we wanted to go to the bathroom or something else like that, then they would kind of use these signs right there. And that would be something that we would kind of work with the kids sometimes too.
Right.
And the parents enjoyed that too, because they got to learn a little bit of what was going on. So I like the fact that there's that nonverbal communication that goes in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's all language. And if we can get them kind of exchanging this language, it doesn't matter what, if it's signs or pictures or words, just as long as they're giving us some type of language or learning some type of language, that's the thing that's most important to me.
Oh, that is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. So when you talk about that, I can hear in your voice how much you really like to do your job and how much it means to you to get the kids. But what does Tresco mean to you when you think about that?
Because I used to work with individuals with disabilities also. And now working with this population, with birth to 3, working with kids, I think it's about kind of the idea that we're always striving to give and always striving like to try to help as much as possible. I remember working with disabilities, we were always trying to be the best that we could, because then that would spread out to our individuals, especially here in this population in birth to 3. Like, we're trying to be the best that we can be, because at the end, it's these kids that are going to be affected, and hopefully affected in a good way. So we always try to go in and we always try to be the most understanding. We always try to be the most knowledgeable. We try to help as much as we can. And I think that's the biggest thing with Tresco is it's about helping. It's about trying to really do your best to be able to help someone out and make sure that they do the best that they can.
Oh, that is great. And I think this is going to be a reoccurring theme when I hear people talk about Tresco, because I've mentioned before that a friend of mine actually works with you guys.
Right.
And she has not stopped talking about just how nice everybody is, how everybody helps everybody out, and they work together as a whole big team,
right?
Which I think is very important, especially for the size of what you guys are doing and the scope of what you're doing. And I know that scope is growing because we talked about that last time. But yeah, just all of that and this work environment right here All I hear are good things. I haven't heard one bad thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's been the best experience of my life. I really love it.
Uh, and I think that that is a good thing, because that's where, if you want to have a good experience with all of your clients and everything else like that, you have to start having that good experience where you want to come into work,
Yeah.
talk to everybody, say hi, and that's, to me, that makes a big difference.
Right.
Because it makes a big difference in your work environment and your attitude as you're going through there. And everybody that I've talked to at Tresco just cannot stop talking about how awesome it is to work for you guys and everything that you do, which I think is just outstanding. And I guess right now, I just asked you if you could explain to me a little bit about your role in the intervention plan designed for an individual. What is it that, how you work with that whole thing?
So with that, I would say my role with the intervention plan is, I also do evaluations, which is kind of separate from the therapy that I do.
Mm-hmm.
But my role is usually, we'll get the evaluation plans and we'll get our placements. And then from there, we go into the homes and we just try to figure out what exactly the families are having difficulties with. Our main focus when we do our IFSPs, which is the Individualized Family Service Plan, is that we focus on parents' concerns, and that's what our goals become. So if their concern is, I'm really concerned that my kid is not able to tell me what he wants to eat, and he gets very frustrated, then that's one of our goals, and that's what we work on. We try to work on trying to figure out how we can give him more language to be able to express that, so then that way he's not frustrated during mealtime. Sometimes we'll have moms that they're having issues with behaviors. They're throwing really bad tantrums for maybe 30, 40 minutes, and it's really kind of driving mom up the wall, and we try to figure out what strategies that we can give them to be able to help with that. So mainly the intervention plan is very family friendly and family oriented, where we focus on what the issues are inside the home, and then we try to work with those as much as possible to help with that. And I would say that's kind of the basis of it. Like, we really work with our families to very specifically work with the issues that they're having in order to help them out and give them some peace of mind.
That's something that I'm also learning as I go through this. It's my second time talking with everybody here, but that's one thing that I am learning, because you have that team that Tresco has,
right,
where somebody goes in and does the evaluation, and from that evaluation, you kind of see basically what the family needs and what the child needs,
right,
to be able to go from there. Is it speech therapy? Is it physical therapy? Is it something else that would go on with that? And that whole idea, how everybody works with that team, including the family and the parents and everybody else in there. And I think that's pretty amazing that you have this group of people working towards that one goal, which is basically helping out the child in any way that they can.
Right.
That is awesome. And I guess that even at that point where you're talking about working with the families and everybody, we're talking about how important it is to get that early intervention.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, of course, was pointed out to me not so long ago is that this intervention, these screenings and everything, are at no cost to the families.
No.
So there's no reason really to not have a screening. If anything, just for your peace of mind, to make sure that everything is on track, to make sure that everything is fine. So the idea of getting these early intervention services is very important for the families.
Absolutely. A lot of the times, moms have a lot going on. They don't think about certain things, but then we come in and we talk with them, and they're like, hey, you're right. That kind of is an issue. Or like, maybe there is something going on here a little bit that I could use a little bit of help with. They're usually so busy and so kind of thinking about other things that it helps when we go in and then we're able to like see something else, to get a second eye on it and be like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I've had a lot of families that at first they were kind of hesitant, and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, I can't live without you guys. And they're like, what are we going to do when you're gone? And I was like, I don't know, you can call me. Like, don't worry about it. I'm always there.
Careful with that. No,
right.
It's one of those things where when you're working together with the families and you guys are all working as a team together, it's nice to get that, I guess you can say, that outside view of things that are going on.
Right.
Because as a family, we all look at our family, we all see our brothers and sisters, our moms and dads in certain ways. I can make fun of my sister for being such a not so needy person. I don't want to talk bad about my sister.
Yeah, it's recording.
Being facetious on that, and trust me, I'm sure she's watching. But when you get that outside look that third party look that's coming in to notice these things. And there could be a lot of things you notice, and it's not always bad. It's always a lot of things that are positive in there as well.
Right. And a lot of the times what will end up happening is they'll have these concerns and they're so scared that something is going to happen, like something's wrong with my baby. And then we go in and we're like, kind of like the cheerleaders, we're telling them like, no, actually they're doing pretty good. And like, I see that they have a lot of really good skills and you shouldn't be as concerned as you should be. I really think that they're going to make it out. I've actually had some bets with some moms. I've been like, I think they're going to be okay. And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, all right, come on, let's see. And sure enough, a couple months later, I'll be like, I told you they were going to get 50 words. And they were
yeah.
Like,
I don't know if those side bets are a Tresco policy or not. I kind of watch out mentioning that one out loud.
No monetary.
No monetary. It's just a little gentleman's,
exactly.
Gentleman's wager agreement. That is awesome. But that is amazing with the work that you guys do. And like I said, not just you, everybody in Tresco and everything else, but right. I think the idea of communication, because the communication is the basis for everything that kind of falls on that. Mm-hmm. And when your child is able to communicate with what they want, they're able to talk to you, and you can have these situations, it bodes well for the future on what they can do.
Right. It's really kind of crazy because like I said earlier, like we would start with kids who aren't saying anything, and then towards the end we have these kids who are able to express their. My favorite thing is when these kids start expressing not just their wants and needs like water or food or things like that, but they start expressing like ideas that we never knew they had. So they'll be pointing, they'll be like, Mom, moon, things like that. And it's like, whoa, I didn't even know that you knew that the moon was there. But it starts like kind of developing this little person that all of a sudden starts taking off and is able to express more than wants and needs. It's kind of crazy. It's cool.
That is awesome. And how long did you say you've been with Tresco?
I've been with Tresco Talks for about 5 years now. Okay.
See, there's a question that I had to ask because I know this happens a lot with teachers, mm-hmm. and it used to happen to me a lot because I think about the kids that I used to help out with when they were just, 3 and 4 years old.
Right.
After 5 years, and you've helped out the families that are there, the kids exit, have you just run into some of the families out somewhere, and you see that growth that's out there, and they're just like, hey, Daniel, and they say hi and everything else? Because I know it happens a lot with teachers, so I imagine with some of the work you've been here and the longer that you're here, that would probably happen to you at some time.
I've had that happen many, many times. I see people all over the place, but even some kids that I was like, wow, you weren't talking that much, and then all of a sudden I see them a year later, and I'm like, oh, what happened? And I guess the mom just used the skills that we gave them, the strategies that we gave them, and kept with it, and the kids they flourish and they do really well. But I see them all the time. I see kids out there that are just talking a ton. Sometimes they remember me. Sometimes they just look at me like, who are you? But for the most part, I have a lot of people that I see out there, and they just always remember the help that we gave them, and kind of the way we just try to help as much as possible, honestly.
And I think that's one of the great things about what Tresco does, and what each individual here at Tresco does to help everybody out, and that is the satisfaction of actually helping someone and then running into them later. I think even we mentioned this one time, we had someone that was part of a Tresco program and then actually ended up working for you guys 20 years later because you guys have been in business for so long, and that is one really, really cool thing. And like we said before, the screenings are free. Mm-hmm. Got to go ahead and check it out. If they had needed any more information, you can go over to trescoinc.org to go ahead and check those out, or just go ahead and call 575-528-2200, and that way they can get the screening in and then kind of start from there with this whole process and everything that goes on with making sure that the kids are going to get to where they need to be,
right,
and accomplish so much more. Who knows what they're going to accomplish in the future? We could find the next Elon Musk somewhere out there.
Yeah.
And then they'll say it was this guy named Daniel that helped me out when I was 4 years old, and I'm going to give him a car.
I think I actually told somebody that they're going to be the next, who was it? Stephen Hawking. And when they solve something incredible, they better remember me.
You could have a galaxy named after you, Daniel.
Yeah,
It'll be
right? Cool.
The Soliz galaxy.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for coming in today. I really appreciate you taking the time to go ahead and talk with me. And I know you've got things to do because you guys are all busy and everything.
Right.
But thanks a lot for stopping by. I really do appreciate that, and letting us know what you do here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
It was a little bit easier than you thought it would be, right?
Yeah, it was pretty
Okay. Well, thanks to Daniel. And of course, thanks for everyone here at Tresco that invites us out. And of course, in a couple more weeks, we will be back. We'll be learning a lot more about what Tresco does. And once again, to go ahead and contact Tresco and get a hold of them for any information or screenings, you can go ahead and go to trescoinc.org, or once again, call 575-528-2200. So in a couple of weeks, we'll meet somebody else with Tresco and learn a lot more about what they do on Let's Talk Tresco.